This is the story of the Gingerbread Man. When you hear the bell, it's time to turn the page. Let's begin.
A little old man and a little old woman lived in a cozy cottage. The cottage was on a farm near the woods. The little old woman could bake the most delicious things. One day she baked a gingerbread man. He had dark raisin eyes, a pink frosting mouth, and fat gumdrop buttons. She popped him into the oven and waited till the delicious smell filled the kitchen. "I'll just take a peek to see if he's done," she said. She opened the oven. Out hopped the gingerbread man. He ran across the kitchen and out the door. "Stop! Stop, gingerbread man!" cried the little old woman. But the gingerbread man just laughed. "Run, run, as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man." He ran down the path and into the garden. The little old man stopped hoeing and cried, "Stop! Stop, gingerbread man!" But the gingerbread man just laughed. "Run, run, as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man. I ran away from the little old woman, and I can run away from you, I can." He ran through the garden and into the pasture. A cream-colored cow stopped chewing and cried, "Stop! Stop, gingerbread man!" But the gingerbread man just laughed. "Run, run, as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man. I ran away from the little old woman. I ran away from the little old man. And I can run away from you, I can." He ran through the pasture and down the lane. A heavy old horse, who was leaning on the fence, cried, "Oh, stop! Stop, gingerbread man!" But the gingerbread man just laughed. "Run, run, as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man. I ran away from the little old woman. I ran away from the little old man. I ran away from the cream-colored cow. And I can run away from you, I can." He ran down the lane and came to a stream. A furry-tailed fox looked out of his den and cried, "Stop! Stop, gingerbread man!" But the gingerbread man just laughed. "Run, run, as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man. I ran away from the little old woman. I ran away from the little old man. I ran away from the cream-colored cow. I ran away from the heavy old horse, and I can run away from you, I can." The fox smiled and said, "I don't like to eat gingerbread men, but if you hop onto my back, I will carry you across the stream." The gingerbread man hopped onto the fox's back, and the fox waded into the stream. The water came up higher and higher. "Hop onto my head to keep dry," said the fox. The gingerbread man hopped onto the fox's head. Soon the water came up higher and higher. "Hop onto my nose to keep dry," said the fox. The gingerbread man hopped onto the fox's nose. The fox's nose went twitchity-twitch. The gingerbread man flipped into the air. The fox caught him with his teeth. Snip, snap, crunch. The fox ate him up with a munch. "Gingerbread men are made to be eaten," said the fox with a sly smile.
This is the story of the Little Red Hen. When you hear the bell, it's time to turn the page. Let's begin.
The little red hen was always tidy and busy. One day, as she was sweeping her yard, she found something. A grain of wheat, she said, just what I need to make some bread. Who will help me plant this wheat? She asked her barnyard friends. Not I, said the cat. Not I, said the duck. Not I, said the pig. Then I'll do it myself, said the little red hen, and so she did. The little red hen watered and hoed. The wheat grew tall. Who will help me harvest this wheat? Asked the little red hen. Not I, said the cat. Not I, said the duck. Not I, said the pig. Then I'll do it myself, said the little red hen, and so she did. It's time to grind this wheat into flour, said the little red hen. Who will help me carry the wheat to the mill? Not I, said the cat. Not I, said the duck. Not I, said the pig. Then I'll do it myself, said the little red hen, and so she did. At last the flour was ready. Who will help me mix the bread? Asked the little red hen. Not I, said the cat. Not I, said the duck. Not I, said the pig. Then I'll do it myself, said the little red hen, and so she did. The bread dough rose into nice plump loaves. Who will help me bake the bread? Asked the little red hen. Not I, said the cat. Not I, said the duck. Not I, said the pig. Then I'll do it myself, said the little red hen, and so she did. When the bread was done, it smelled wonderful. Now, who will help me eat this yummy bread? Asked the little red hen. I will, said the cat. I will, said the duck. I will, said the pig. No, you won't, said the little red hen. I did all the work. My chicks and I shall eat all the bread. She cut big, thick slices and spread them with butter and jam. Then she called her baby chicks. They picked up the nice hot bread to the very last crumb.
This is the story of the Lizard and the Painted Rock. When you hear the bell, it's time to turn the page. Let's begin.
The artist had been at work all day. At night, the animals came to see what he had painted on the side of the rocky cliff. "Look," said Rabbit, "the artist has painted me right here. I must be very important." "Look," said Turtle, "the artist has painted me over here. I must be very important too." Lizard looked at the wonderful painted rock. He looked and looked for a picture of a lizard, but he could not find one. "The artist didn't paint you, Lizard," said Rabbit. "You must not be very important," said Turtle. "I guess not," Lizard said sadly. Rabbit and Turtle went off to play in the cool, dark night. But Lizard stayed by the painted rock, looking and thinking. "Why didn't the artist paint me?" he asked the shining moon. "I am just as important as Turtle and Rabbit." Then he saw something. The artist had left his brush and a small pot of paint near the rock. Suddenly, Lizard had an idea. "I know," he said. "I will paint my own picture." Then everyone will know that I am important too. Lizard tried to paint. He tried his best, but nothing he painted looked like a lizard. The paint dripped off the brush and ran down the rock. Lizard stepped in the paint and got a little of it on his feet. Where he walked, he left painted lizard tracks behind him. The tracks gave Lizard a new idea. "Oh," he said, "there's more than one way to paint a picture." Lizard poured some paint on the ground. He crawled around in the paint until the front of him was covered from head to tail. Then he backed away from the rock. He counted to 4 and took a long running leap. Splat! Lizard's painted body hit the rock and stuck. "Help!" Lizard yelled. "I can't get loose." Rabbit and Turtle came running. But Lizard had leaped high on the rock. Even when Rabbit stood on Turtle's back, they could not reach him. Poor Lizard. He knew what would happen if he could not get loose. The morning sun would shine on the rock. Its heat would dry the paint and shrivel his small lizard body. He would be part of the rock forever. The night was long and sad. Just as the sun was rising, the artist came back. "What is this?" he asked, laughing. "Today I was going to paint a lizard. Now I see that the lizard has painted himself." Very gently, he pulled Lizard loose. Then he looked at the lizard shape the paint had left on the rock. He looked and he thought. "I know," he said at last. "I know what this lizard needs." He dipped his brush into a new pot of paint. Carefully, he made 4 stripes on the back of the painted lizard. Then he reached down and painted the same 4 stripes on Lizard's back. "Now I have truly painted you, little brother," he said. Lizard scurried away, feeling very, very important.
This is the story of Anansi and the 7 Yam Hills. When you hear the bell, it's time to turn the page. Let's begin.
One day, Anansi the spider planted some yams. First, he dug some holes in his garden. Then he dropped in some yam pieces and covered them with big hills of dirt. "My, don't those yam hills look fine?" he said. "I think I'll count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7! When Anansi said the word 7, a strange thing happened. He shot into the air, flipped over twice, and came down kerthump on the ground. Said Anansi, brushing himself off. "I must have said a magic word. Maybe I could use it to trick my friends." Soon Pig came down the road and saw Anansi sitting in his garden. Anansi began to moan and groan. "What's the matter, Anansi?" Pig asked. "Woe is me!" cried Anansi. "I've planted all these yam hills. Now I can't count them." "You silly spider," said Pig. "I can count your yam hills. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7! When Pig said the word 7, a strange thing happened. He shot into the air, flipped over twice, and came down kerthump on the ground. Anansi laughed until his sides ached. Soon Monkey came down the road and saw Anansi sitting in his garden. Anansi began to moan and groan. "What's the matter, Anansi?" Monkey asked. Woe is me, cried Anansi. I've planted all these yam hills. Now I can't count them. You silly spider, said Monkey. I can count your yam hills. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7! When Monkey said the word 7, a strange thing happened. He shot into the air, flipped over twice, and came down kerthump on the ground. Anansi laughed until his sides ached. What fun Anansi had that day. He played the same trick on Tiger. He played the trick on Snake and Rat. And Hippo. They all shot into the air, flipped over twice, and came down kerthump on the ground. Anansi laughed until his sides ached. All this time, Guinea Fowl was watching from behind a persimmon bush. She crept around the fence and came down the road. When Anansi saw her, he began to moan and groan. "What's the matter, Anansi?" Guinea Fowl asked. "Woe is me," cried Anansi. "I've planted all these yam hills. Now I can't count them." Guinea Fowl hopped onto one of the yam hills. "I can count them," she said. "There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the one I'm sitting on." "That's wrong," Anansi shouted. "Count them again." 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the one I'm sitting on, said Guinea Fowl. "No," Anansi screamed. "You're not counting them right." "Oh," said Guinea Fowl. "How am I supposed to count them?" "You're supposed to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7! When Anansi said the word 7, a strange thing happened. He shot into the air, flipped over twice, and came down kerthump on the ground. Pig, monkey, tiger, snake, rat, hippo, and guinea fowl all laughed until their sides ached.
This is the story of the Big Mitten. When you hear the bell, it's time to turn the page. Let's begin.
Mitya lives way up north near a big forest where it gets very cold. One day, Babushka knitted some woolly new mittens to keep Mitya's hands warm. They were beautiful, red and white and soft. Mitya wore his new mittens into the forest as he looked for firewood. When he stopped to tie his boot, he forgot one mitten and left it under a tree. Soon Mouse came by, shivering and shaking with the cold. "What's this?" He sniffed the mitten. "Something warm, just for me." Mouse crawled inside. He wiggled and snuggled and made himself cozy and warm. Soon Rabbit came by, shivering and shaking with the cold. "What's this?" He sniffed the mitten. "Something warm, just for me." "No, just for me," said Mouse. "Please let me in too," begged Rabbit. Mouse looked at Rabbit's big feet. He sighed and reluctantly moved over. Rabbit crawled inside. Mouse and Rabbit wiggled and snuggled and made themselves cozy and warm. Soon Hedgehog came by, shivering and shaking with the cold. "What's this?" He sniffed the mitten. "Something warm just for me." "No, just for us," said Mouse and Rabbit. "Please let me in too," begged Hedgehog. Mouse and Rabbit looked at Hedgehog's prickles. They sighed and reluctantly moved over. Hedgehog crawled inside. Mouse, Rabbit, and Hedgehog wiggled and snuggled and made themselves cozy and warm. Soon Fox came by, shivering and shaking with the cold. "What's this?" He sniffed the mitten. "Something warm, just for me." "No, just for us," said Mouse, Rabbit, and Hedgehog. "Please let me in too," begged Fox. Mouse, Rabbit, and Hedgehog looked at Fox's bushy tail. They sighed and reluctantly moved over. Fox crawled inside. Mouse, Rabbit, Hedgehog, and Fox wiggled and snuggled and made themselves cozy and warm. Soon Bear came by, shivering and shaking with the cold. "What's this?" He sniffed the mitten. "Something warm just for me." "No, just for us," said Mouse, Rabbit, Hedgehog, and Fox. "Move over," growled Bear. Mouse, Rabbit, Hedgehog, and Fox looked at Bear's sharp claws. They sighed and reluctantly moved over. Bear crawled inside. Mouse, Rabbit, Hedgehog, Fox, and Bear wiggled and snuggled and made themselves cozy and warm. Bear rolled over and poked Fox with one sharp claw. Fox rolled over and brushed Hedgehog with his bushy tail. Hedgehog rolled over and scratched Rabbit with his prickles. Rabbit rolled over and bumped Mouse with his big feet. Mouse rolled over and tickled Bear's nose with his long whiskers, and Bear sneezed. "Huh? Choo!" The end.
This is the story of the Three Little Pigs. When you hear the bell, it's time to turn the page. Let's begin.
Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs who lived with their mother in a wee little house. It was crowded. One day, Mother Pig said to her 3 little pigs, "It's time to go out into the world to seek your fortunes and build homes of your own." As she waved goodbye, she said, "Remember, beware of the big bad wolf." Humming and singing, the 3 little pigs started off down the road. The big bad wolf watched from the hill. He smiled and licked his chops. The 3 little pigs soon met a man with a load of straw. "Good morning, sir," said the first little pig. "May I have some straw to build me a house?" "Help yourself, little pig," said the man. "I have enough to share." Now, a house made of straw is not a very strong house, and it doesn't take very long to build. But that was okay with the first little pig, because he would much rather sing and play than work hard all day. Humming and singing, the first little pig built himself a lovely little house of straw. The big bad wolf watched from the hill. He smiled and licked his chops. The second little pig met a man with a load of sticks. "Good morning, sir," he said. May I have some sticks to build me a house?" "Help yourself, little pig," said the man. "I have enough to share." Now, a house made of sticks is not a very strong house, and it doesn't take very long to build. But that was okay with the second little pig, because he would much rather sing and play than work hard all day. Humming and singing, the second little pig built himself a lovely little house of sticks. The big bad wolf watched from the hill. He smiled and licked his chops. Now the third little pig met a man with a load of bricks. "Good morning, sir. May I have some bricks to build me a house?" "Help yourself, little pig," said the man. "I have enough to share." Now, building a strong house of bricks is a lot of hard work, and even though the third little pig liked to sing and play too, he was not afraid of a little hard work each day. So, humming and singing, the third little pig built himself a stout and lovely little house of bricks. Big Bad Wolf watched from the hill. He smiled and licked his chops. One day, the Big Bad Wolf was hungry. He knocked on the first little pig's door and said in his friendliest voice, little pig, let me come in." "Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin will I let you come in." "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in." So he huffed, and he puffed, and he blew the house in. The little pig ran with all his might to his brother's house of sticks. They slammed the door and locked it tight. The Big Bad Wolf was very hungry. He knocked on the second little pig's door and said, little pig, let me come in." "Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin will I let you come in." "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in." So he huffed, and he puffed, and he huffed, and he puffed, and he blew the house in. The little pigs ran with all their might to their brother's house of bricks. They slammed the door and locked it tight. The Big Bad Wolf was very, very hungry. So he knocked on the third little pig's door and said, little pig, let me come in." "Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin will I let you come in." "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in." So he huffed, and he puffed, and he huffed, and he puffed, and he huffed, and he puffed, but he could not blow the brick house in. Now the Big Bad Wolf was very, very, very hungry, and angry too. "I'll show you," he growled. "I'll climb on your roof and slide down your chimney." But the smart little pig was ready for him. He had a big pot of water boiling on the fire. He took off the lid, and the wolf fell in with a big splash. It stung his nose, and it stung his toes, and it stung his tail, too. "Oh!" the wolf howled as he hopped out of the pot. "Oh, oh, oh!" He ran out the door and all the way to his house on the hill. Now the wolf is still hungry, but not so big and bad, and the three little pigs are still humming and happy. The end.
This is the story of the city mouse and the country mouse. When you hear the bell, It's time to turn the page. Let's begin.
Daisy finished sweeping the floor. She had been bustling about her little cottage, cleaning, dusting, and preparing a fine meal. Her cousin Ginger was coming all the way from the big city for a visit. Daisy wanted everything to be perfect. Suddenly, the front door flew open. "Hello, Daisy, dear," boomed Ginger. Daisy jumped up to greet her. "You must be tired from your long trip," she said. "Come relax in my rocking chair. You can listen to the birds sing while I get dinner on." "Relax?" Ginger kicked up her heels. "Are you kidding? I'm here to have fun." Daisy laid out a delicious feast. She filled the table with plump nuts and seeds she had gathered herself. She added some fat green peas and some fresh kernels of corn. She had even prepared a lovely dessert of blueberries and sunflower seeds. As Ginger nibbled on the berries and seeds, she looked around her. "Is this all? Where's the cake and jelly? Why, darling, in the city where I live, the food is so fine." Daisy put away the last cup and plate. "Now let's have some fun," she said. She led Ginger to the top of a grassy hill. From where they sat, they could see the valley washed red by the blazing sunset. As the sky faded, the stars began to twinkle. Soon the fireflies began to sparkle and dance to the singing of the crickets and the humming of the frogs. Daisy sighed happily, but Ginger jumped up and said, "This is nice, but I'm getting bored. Where are the lights and music? Where's the hustle and bustle? Darling, you must come with me to the city. I'll show you how exciting life can be." They set off the next morning. It was a long walk, but soon sidewalks and pavement replaced the grassy fields. Instead of trees, there were tall, tall buildings. Daisy had to look straight up to see a little piece of the sky. There were trucks with loud beeps and cars with screeching tires. There were honking yellow cabs, bicycles with shrill bells, and rumbling, whistling trains. "Look out!" Ginger pulled Daisy against the wall as an enormous foot stepped right where Daisy had been. There were feet everywhere and not a single mushroom to hide under. Daisy began to tremble. She stayed right beside Ginger as they scurried along, dodging screeching tires and stomping feet. At last they arrived at Ginger's elegant little mouse hole. Daisy sank into a fluffy chair, breathing hard. "Hurry, darling, get ready," said Ginger. "We're going to a party." Daisy put on her best dress, and the two mice scampered down the street to a fancy hotel. Daisy tried to pretend the city lights were friendly fireflies like the ones back home, but the dark alleys and strange noises kept her heart pattering. She tried to look cheerful. Maybe the party would be fun. "Hello, darlings," Ginger greeted her friends and introduced them to Daisy. They seemed nice, but the music was so loud that Daisy couldn't hear what they were saying. She didn't know how to dance, and all the noise was giving her a headache. She was grateful when Ginger said, "Let's go get a bite to eat. I know this fabulous restaurant. You're going to love it." Daisy was glad she didn't have to find the restaurant by herself. To get there, the mice had to pick their way through a scary maze of mouse traps. At last they reached the hotel's kitchen. Daisy forgot to be frightened when she saw the delicious food piled on the countertops. So much food! Daisy didn't know where to begin. Should she try the big yellow cheese full of holes, or the white cake dripping with chocolate sauce? First she tasted a bit of mint jelly filled with berries. Then she nibbled an olive and sampled some banana cream pie. Just as she was about to sip some bubbly pink soda, a huge cat bounded onto the countertop. "Run!" shouted Ginger, grabbing Daisy's hand. Together they leaped to the floor. Around and around the room they scrambled, with the cat right behind them. Daisy's tail slipped through its claws as the two little mice dived through a narrow crack in the floor. Neither of them stopped running until they reached the alley outside. Daisy leaned against a trash can, her heart thudding. When she caught her breath, she said, "Thank you for everything, cousin, but city life is just not for me." Then she set off for her home in the country. The next evening, Daisy was rocking in her rocking chair, listening to the singing crickets and the humming frogs. "This is the life for me," she sighed. That same evening, Ginger was dancing to some cool piano jazz and nibbling on a slice of lime cheesecake. "This is the life for me," she sighed.
This is the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. When you hear the bell, it's time to turn the page. Let's begin.
Once upon a time, there was a family of bears. Papa Bear was big and gruff. Mama Bear was middle-sized and sweet. Baby Bear was very small with a squeaky little voice. They lived in a snug house in the big, dark forest. One morning, Mama Bear made porridge for breakfast. "This porridge is much too hot," she said in her sweet voice. "Let's take a walk while it cools." Off the bears went into the big, dark forest. Soon a little girl named Goldilocks came to the house. She knocked on the door. Nobody answered. "Oh dear," she said, "no one seems to be home. But this is such a cute little house. I'll just look inside." The first thing she saw was the table with 3 bowls of porridge. "I'll just have a taste," she said. She took a sip from Papa Bear's big bowl. "Oh, this porridge is too hot." She tried the porridge in Mama Bear's middle-sized bowl. "This porridge is too cold." She tasted the porridge in Baby Bear's tiny bowl. "This porridge is just right," she said, smacking her lips. "I'm going to eat it all up." And she did. Then Goldilocks went into the parlor. She saw 3 chairs. "I'll just sit down and rest," she said. She tried Papa Bear's big chair. "Oh, this chair is too hard." She tried Mama Bear's middle-sized chair. "This chair is too soft." She tried Baby Bear's tiny chair. "This chair is just right," she said, rocking back and forth. She rocked and rocked until the tiny chair broke into pieces. Goldilocks picked herself up. "I'm so tired," she yawned. "A nap would be nice." She went upstairs and found 3 beds. She tried Papa Bear's big bed. "Oh, this bed is too hard." She tried Mama Bear's middle-sized bed. "This bed is as soft as mush." She tried Baby Bear's tiny bed. "This bed is just right," she said with a sleepy sigh. "I'll just lie down for a minute." Ooh. Goldilocks closed her eyes. Before she knew it, she was fast asleep. Very soon the hungry bear family came home. They sat down at the table. "Somebody's been eating my porridge," growled Papa Bear. "Oh, somebody's been eating my porridge too," gasped Mama Bear. Somebody's been eating my porridge and it's all gone, squeaked Baby Bear. The unhappy bears went into the parlor. Somebody's been sitting in my chair, growled Papa Bear. Oh, somebody's been sitting in my chair too, gasped Mama Bear. Somebody's been sitting in my chair, squeaked Baby Bear, and it's all broken into pieces. By now the bears were very upset. They rushed upstairs. Somebody's been sleeping in my bed, growled Papa Bear. Oh dear, somebody's been sleeping in my bed too, gasped Mama Bear. Oh, squeaked Baby Bear, somebody's been sleeping in my bed, and here she is! Baby Bear's squeaky little voice woke up Goldilocks. When she saw the three bears, she jumped up like a frightened rabbit. Before the bears could stop her, she raced down the stairs, rushed out the door, and ran for home as fast as she could go. And the three bears never saw Goldilocks again.
This is the story of the magic porridge pot. When you hear the bell, it's time to turn the page. Let's begin. Once upon a time, there was a good little girl who lived with her mother and her kitty in their little cottage in a little village. They were very poor, and sometimes they didn't have enough to eat. One day there was no food left in the cupboard, so the mother sent the little girl into the forest to find some berries for breakfast. The little girl hadn't gone very far when she met an old woman she had never seen before. The old woman said, "Hello, little girl. What are you looking for?" The little girl replied with a polite smile, "I'm looking for berries for our breakfast." Now the old woman knew that the little girl was good. She also knew that sometimes there was not enough food to eat. The old woman gave the little girl a magic pot and told her that when she was hungry, she was to say, "Boil, magic pot, boil," and the magic pot would bubble and boil and make delicious sweet porridge. "When you've had enough and want it to stop," said the old woman, "you call out, 'Enough, magic pot, stop.'" The little girl thanked the old woman and ran home to show her mother the wonderful magic pot. They sat down at the table, and the little girl called out, "Boil, magic pot, boil." The magic pot bubbled and boiled, and the little girl and her mother ate delicious sweet porridge until they were full. Then the little girl shouted, "Enough, magic pot, stop." Just as expected, the magic pot stopped. The little girl, her mother, and the kitty were very happy because they never went hungry again. But while the little girl was visiting friends one day, her mother got hungry. She got out the magic pot, put it on the table, and said, "Boil, magic pot, boil." Sure enough, the magic pot bubbled and boiled and made the delicious sweet porridge. The mother soon had enough to eat, so she shouted, "Stop, magic pot, enough." But those weren't the magic words, so the magic pot kept making sweet porridge. It began to bubble over the top of the pot. The mother shouted, "Stop! Stop! Stop, little pot!" But the magic pot bubbled and boiled even more, and the porridge spilled onto the table and onto the floor. "Oh dear," cried the mother, "I've forgotten the magic words." She tried, "Please stop, magic pot," but the magic pot kept bubbling and boiling, and the porridge filled the house and ran out the door. The kitty ran up a tree while the mother ran ahead of the porridge shouting, "Help! Help! Magic pot, stop!" But the porridge continued to roll through the village. She shouted, "Enough! Enough! Stop, magic pot!" But the porridge began to fill the houses. All the people ran through the village, trying to stay ahead of the porridge. The mother continued to shout at the magic pot. Just then, the little girl returned to see what the shouting and meowing was about. She could see what was wrong and knew just what to do to save the village. She shouted at the magic pot, "Enough, magic pot! Stop!" At last, the magic pot stopped bubbling and boiling, and the porridge stopped rolling. The little girl saved the village, but it took the people, the pigs, and the cows 3 whole weeks to eat all the porridge so they could get back into their houses.
This is the story of the 3 wishes. When you hear the bell, it's time to turn the page. Let's begin.
Once upon a time, a woodcutter was deep in the forest when he found an enormous tree. It was the biggest tree he had ever seen. He reached back for a mighty swing with his axe when he heard a little voice shout, "Stop! Please don't chop down my tree." The woodcutter looked up and down, then all around. There didn't seem to be anyone there. With a shrug, he reached back again for a mighty swing with his axe. "Stop!" the little voice shouted again. "Please don't chop down my tree." The woodcutter looked up and down, then all around again. At last, he saw a wee little man sitting on the first branch of the big tree. He was dressed all in green, with buckles on his hat and buckles on his pointed shoes. The woodcutter dropped his axe. He had never seen such a wee man before. The wee little man said again, "Please don't chop down my tree." The woodcutter was a kindly man, so he agreed never to chop down the enormous tree. The wee little man was so grateful that he granted the woodcutter 3 wishes. The woodcutter was so excited that he ran all the way home to tell his wife the good news. "Wife, wife," he called breathlessly, "3 wishes. We can have any 3 wishes we wish." "Wishes, wishes," sang the wife as she danced around the room. "What shall we wish?" he said. "I think I'll wish for a fine little cottage with some cows and some chickens." "What?" shouted his wife. "Why would you ask for a little cottage when we could have a huge castle and you could be king and I could be queen?" "I don't want to be king and live in a castle," shouted the man. "I want a cottage with chickens and cows." The woodcutter and his wife argued all day and all night about what to wish. At last, they were too tired to argue any more. Then the woodcutter remembered that he hadn't eaten for a long time and he was very hungry. He said, "I'm so hungry. I wish I had a nice fat sausage to eat." Instantly, a most delicious fat sausage appeared on a plate before him. "Look what you've done," scolded the wife angrily. "You've wasted one of our wishes." The woodcutter stomped his foot and cried, "I wish that sausage were on the end of your nose." Instantly, the sausage appeared on the end of his wife's nose. "Oh dear," The woodcutter knew he'd made a big mistake. His wife looked in the mirror. She squealed in horror and began to tug at the sausage. It wouldn't come off. The woodcutter tugged at the sausage. It wouldn't come off. The woodcutter told his wife that he would use his last wish to please her. He would wish for a fine castle where she could be queen. "What?" shouted his wife. "How could I be queen in a fine castle with a big sausage on my nose?" At last they agreed on what he should wish. The woodcutter wished with his very last wish that the sausage would disappear from his wife's nose. They were so glad to be rid of the sausage that they decided to be happy with what they had.
This is the story of Henny Penny. When you hear the bell, it's time to turn the page. Let's begin.
Henny Penny was looking for bugs in the barnyard when a big fat acorn fell from a tall tree and bonked her right on the head. Henny Penny did not stop to think. "Oh dear," she squawked. "The sky is falling, the sky is falling. I must run and tell the king." Down the road she flew in a flurry of feathers. As she passed the pond, she saw Ducky Lucky taking a swim. "The sky is falling, Ducky Lucky," she squawked. Ducky Lucky did not stop to think. "Oh dear," he quacked. "We must run and tell the king." Down the road they flew in a flurry of feathers. As they passed a haystack, they saw Goosey Lucy sitting in the shade. "Henny Penny says that the sky is falling," quacked Ducky Lucky. Goosey Lucy did not stop to think. "Oh dear," she honked. "We must run and tell the king." Down the road they flew in a flurry of feathers. As they passed a fence, they saw Cocky Locky sitting on the top rail. "Ducky Lucky says that Henny Penny says that the sky is falling," honked Goosey Lucy. Cocky Locky did not stop to think. "Oh dear," he crowed. "We must run and tell the king." Down the road they flew in a flurry of feathers. As they passed a field, they saw Turkey Lurkey pecking for grain. "Goosey Lucy says that Ducky Lucky says that Henny Penny says that the sky is falling," crowed Cocky Locky. Turkey Lurkey did not stop to think. "Oh dear," he gobbled. "We must run and tell the king." Down the road they flew in a flurry of feathers. As they passed the woods, Foxy Loxy came out of his den. "Cocky Locky says that Goosey Lucy says that Ducky Lucky says that Henny Penny says that the sky is falling," gobbled Turkey Lurkey. Foxy Loxy did stop to think. "We are running to tell the king," cackled Henny Penny. "Come with me," said Foxy Loxy. "I know a shortcut to the king's palace." He opened the door to his den. Henny Penny, Ducky Lucky, Goosey Lucy, Cocky Locky, and Turkey Lurkey all ran inside. Foxy Loxy smiled as he closed the door. His long pink tongue licked his whiskers. Then Turkey Lurkey stopped to think. Cocky Locky stopped to think. Goosey Lucy stopped to think. Ducky Lucky stopped to think. Even Henny Penny stopped to think. out the door, and up the road they flew in a flurry of feathers. They did not stop until they were safe at home in the barnyard. And Henny Penny never did tell the king that the sky was falling. The end.
This is the story of Mr. Lucky Straw. When you hear the bell, it's time to turn the page. Let's begin.
One day, a poor farmer named Yosaku was walking down the road. He tripped over a stone and tumbled head over heels into a mud puddle. "What good fortune!" he exclaimed, sitting up. "I could have landed on the hard ground and been hurt. Instead, I have fallen into this nice, soft mud. It was meant to be. This is my lucky day." As he brushed himself off, Yosaku noticed a piece of straw stuck to his sleeve. He started to throw the straw away. Then he stopped to think. If this is my lucky day, maybe this is a lucky straw. I will save it. As Yosaku went on down the road, a dragonfly started buzzing around his head. "Shoo! Go away!" Yosaku batted at the dragonfly, but the pesky insect would not leave. So Yosaku took a string and tied the dragonfly to the end of the straw. Soon he met a woman and a little boy. "Mama!" shouted the little boy. "Look at that dragonfly tied to a straw. I want it. Please get it for me." "You need it more than I do," said Yosaku. He gave the dragonfly and the straw to the little boy. The woman was so grateful that she gave Yosaku 3 of the oranges she was carrying. "What lovely oranges," said Yosaku. "And all because I saved a piece of straw. This is my lucky day." Soon Yosaku met a peddler with a heavy load of cloth. "I'm so hot and thirsty," the peddler sighed. "One of those oranges would be delicious." "You need the oranges more than I do. You can have them all," said Yosaku. He gave the peddler all 3 of the oranges. The peddler was so grateful that he gave Yosaku 3 pieces of fine silk cloth. "What lovely cloth," said Yosaku. "And all because I saved a piece of straw. This is my lucky day." Soon Yosaku met a princess. She was traveling in a covered litter with her guards and servants. "What beautiful cloth," she said when she saw Yosaku. "Just what I need for my new kimono. Would you let me have a piece?" "You need the cloth more than I do. You can have it all," said Yosaku. He gave the princess all 3 pieces of cloth. The princess was so grateful that she gave Yosaku a big bag of gold. Yosaku walked home to his village, carrying the gold. He saw some poor, hungry people in their huts. "They need this gold more than I do," he said. Yosaku used the gold to buy land for all the people in his village. Now they could raise their own food. No one would go hungry. "And all because I saved a piece of straw," said Yosaku. "This was truly my lucky day." The people in Yosaku's village were very happy, and after that, they always called Yosaku Mr. Lucky Straw.
This is the story of La Tortuga, a Mexican folktale. When you hear the bell, it's time to turn the page. Let's begin.
La Tortuga lived in a hole under a big acacia tree in a sunny Mexican village. She was as old as the tree that covered her home. She was as old as the grandmothers who came to the plaza to talk and knit. And she could remember everything that ever happened in the village. Every day, when the children passed her tree, they would sing to her.
Tortuga, Tortuga, with ancient eyes, play your flute, your little clay flute. Tortuga, Tortuga, so old and wise, play your flute and dance for us.
Now, La Tortuga had not lived so long for nothing. She knew the children wanted to catch her and make her into turtle soup. She stayed in her hole and kept very, very quiet. But one day, the children tricked her. "Come out, Tortuga," they called. "We have some nice juicy grapes for you to eat." La Tortuga loved grapes. She poked her head out of the hole. Pop! The children grabbed her and shoved her into a box. "What delicious turtle soup she'll make," they said. La Tortuga did not want to be turtle soup, but she had no way to get out of the box. Then she remembered her flute. She found it inside her shell and began to play. Her music was as old as the clay and as wild as the call of a bird. La Tortuga played and played until the children carried her inside their house. Then she stopped. "Play some more, Tortuga," the children begged. "Play your flute for us." "I can play much better when I dance," said La Tortuga, "and I'm a very fine dancer. Let me out of this box and I'll show you." The children opened the box. They sang as La Tortuga danced around the room, playing her flute.
Tortuga, Tortuga, with ancient eyes, play your flute, your little clay flute. Tortuga, Tortuga, so old and wise, play your flute and dance for us.
La Tortuga danced and danced until she came to the door. Then she stopped. "Dance some more, Tortuga," the children begged. "Dance and play your flute for us." "I can play and dance much better outside," said La Tortuga. "Open the door and I'll show you." The children opened the door. They sang as La Tortuga danced outside, playing her flute.
Tortuga, Tortuga, with ancient eyes, play your flute, your little clay flute. Tortuga, Tortuga, so old and wise, play your flute and dance for us.
The children followed her into the yard. "You dance too," she said. The children began to dance. They hopped and skipped, they spun in circles and kicked up their heels. They had never had so much fun. La Tortuga danced and danced. She danced down the path and into the street. She danced across the plaza to her hole under the big acacia tree. Then, pop! She slipped inside and closed the door. "Come out, Tortuga!" the children cried. "Play your flute and dance with us." But La Tortuga was too wise to be fooled again. "I won't come out," she said. "But whenever you want to dance, come to the tree and call me. I will play my flute for you." Now when the children pass the big acacia tree, they sing to La Tortuga.
Tortuga, Tortuga, with ancient eyes, play your flute, your little clay flute. Tortuga, Tortuga, so old and wise, play your flute and dance for us.
La Tortuga plays her flute. Her music is as old as the clay and as wild as the call of a bird. And the children dance.
This is the story of the Shoemaker and the Elves. When you hear the bell, it's time to turn the page. Let's begin.
Jonas Cobbler kept a tiny shoemaker shop on the first floor of a 3-story red brick building in a big city. The tiny sign, Shoemaker, could barely be seen. The window was usually filled with Jonas's carefully crafted shoes, but lately the window was often empty. Jonas's dear wife, Rose, had been sick, and after paying for the doctor and the medicine, there wasn't enough money left for leather to make many shoes. Late one night, Jonas cut his last pieces of leather to make a pair of brown and white Oxfords. He was very tired, but he had to finish them because the mayor was coming in the morning to look for some shoes. Jonas stretched and yawned. He put his head down on the workbench, thinking he might rest his eyes for just a moment. The morning sun was just peeping through the window when Jonas woke with a start and rubbed his eyes. He couldn't believe what he saw. A fine new pair of brown and white Oxfords shone in the early morning light. He grabbed the shoes and examined the stitching. Every stitch was straight and tight. The shoes were perfect. "Rosie, Rosie, come here quick," he called. Rose hurried into the room, yawning and brushing her hair. "Look, during the night someone finished my shoes," he said. "Who could have been so kind?" she asked as she touched the stitches, admired the shine, and carefully placed them in the window. Soon the little bell over the door jingled as the dapper mayor strode into the shop. "Say, Jonas," said the mayor in his usual loud voice, "I want to try on those fancy shoes you have in the window." He put them on and tied them just so. "I've never seen any so fine," he said, as he looked in the mirror. He paid handsomely for them. Then he left proudly wearing the shoes. With the extra money, Jonas was able to buy enough shiny red leather for 2 pairs of high-heel shoes. He cut them out carefully that night and began to stitch and tap. But before long, his eyelids grew heavy, so he put his head down to rest for a minute. Suddenly, the morning light woke him. There before his eyes were the prettiest shoes he had ever seen. He laughed, ha ha ha, and danced around holding the 2 stylish pairs of high-heel shoes. Then he placed them on display in the sunny window. That day, 2 young ladies in very fine clothes bought the new shiny red shoes and wore them as they left the shop. Jonas had money to purchase shiny, supple, black leather, enough for 4 pairs of boots. Jonas carefully cut out 4 pairs of boots and laid the leather on his workbench. He yawned and stretched and soon fell asleep. Sure enough, in the morning, 4 pairs of shiny, supple boots filled his entire window. The bell rang all morning as customers hurried in to try on the wonderful black boots. Before long, People were coming from all over the city to buy the fine shoes found in Jonas's window. Jonas and Rose were becoming quite prosperous. One day, Rose stood in the doorway looking thoughtful. "Jonas, let's watch tonight and see who makes all these beautiful shoes." That night, Rose and Jonas tiptoed down the stairs and peeked through a crack in the hall doorway. To their great surprise, they saw two happy little elves bent over the shoes, tapping and sewing. As they worked, they sang,
"Work is easy if we share. Work is easy if we care. Work is fun for everyone. We work together and get it done."
"Jonas," whispered Rose, "those tiny elves have been sewing for you each night. But look, they're dressed in rags." Jonas and Rose tiptoed up the stairs. "We must show them how grateful we are. Let's make something nice and warm for them to wear." All the next day, Rose cut and sewed. She fashioned the finest little suits you can imagine. Vests and coats and trousers, even little felt fedora hats. And Jonas made the elves some shiny brown leather shoes. Just before midnight, they carefully laid the outfits on the work table. Then they hid behind the door. As the clock struck 12, the little elves entered. They looked all around for the leather to make shoes. When they saw the new clothes, they held them up curiously. Then they tried them on. To their delight, everything fit just right. They giggled and danced around and admired each other in the mirror. Then the little elves danced out the door and never returned. People still come from all over the city to buy the fine shoes from the tiny shop. And now, while the shoemaker and his wife are tapping and stitching, you can hear them sing.
Work is easy if we share.
Work is easy if we care. Work is fun for everyone. We work together and get it done.
This is the story of the brothers. When you hear the bell, it's time to turn the page. Let's begin.
In the ancient land of Israel, a man named Eli lived with his two sons. The boys were named Samuel and Joshua, and they were always together. In the fall, when the first rains came, Samuel and Joshua helped their father plow the land. They helped him plant the wheat that fed their family. As the wheat grew, Samuel and Joshua guarded it from the birds. Sometimes they played games among the tall wheat stalks, but they were always careful not to trample the wheat. When the wheat was golden, Eli cut the long stalks with a sickle. Samuel and Joshua helped bundle the wheat stalks into sheaves. They tied the sheaves to the donkey and took the wheat to the threshing floor. Samuel and Joshua helped spread the wheat on the threshing floor. Then Samuel rode the donkey around and around the threshing floor, while Joshua rode behind on the sledge. The sledge and the donkey's hooves separated the kernels of wheat from the stalks. Samuel and Joshua helped to toss the wheat into the air so that the breeze could carry away the chaff. It was Samuel and Joshua who sang the loudest and danced the most, when at last the precious grains of wheat were stored away in the large clay jars. As the years passed, Samuel and Joshua grew to be men. Eli, their father, grew to be old. Before he died, he gave half his land to Samuel and half to Joshua. "Always take care of the land," their father said, "and always remember, it is good when brothers live together in friendship." Joshua married a lovely woman, named Sarah, and with Samuel's help, built a house on his own land. As time passed, they had 3 children. Samuel did not get married. He lived in his father's house alone. One winter, there was almost no rain. The hot, yellow sun baked the earth. Only a little wheat grew on Samuel's land. Only a little wheat grew on Joshua's land. Both brothers worried as they carried the sheaves to their threshing floors. Would there be enough wheat to last until the next harvest? That night, Joshua could not sleep. "I have a family to help me," he said to Sarah, "but Samuel is all alone. I'm going to give him some of my wheat." Joshua got up in the dark, loaded some wheat onto his donkey, and took it to Samuel's threshing floor. That night Samuel could not sleep either. "My brother has a wife and children to feed," he said to himself. "He needs more wheat than I do. I'm going to give him some of my wheat." Samuel got up in the dark, loaded some wheat onto his donkey, and took it to Joshua's threshing floor. The next morning, Joshua saw that he had as much wheat as before. "I didn't give my brother enough," he said. "Tonight I will take him more wheat." Samuel also saw that he had as much wheat as before. "I didn't give my brother enough," he said. "Tonight I will take him more wheat." That night Joshua loaded more wheat onto his donkey and took it to Samuel's threshing floor. Samuel loaded more wheat onto his donkey and took it to Joshua's threshing floor. They passed in the dark without seeing each other. The next morning, each brother had as much wheat as before. "Tonight I must take more wheat to my brother," said Joshua. "The children and I will help you," said Sarah. That night, Joshua loaded his donkey with wheat. Sarah and the children gathered up all the wheat they could carry. They all set out for Samuel's threshing floor. Samuel was taking more wheat to his brother when he saw Joshua's family coming across the field. He dropped the wheat and ran to meet them. As the 2 brothers hugged each other, they heard in their hearts a voice singing, "It is good when brothers live together in friendship." Hundreds of years passed, and where the brothers' fields used to be, a city grew up, the city of Jerusalem. On the place where the brothers had met and hugged each other in the night, King Solomon built the holy temple. When the temple was finished, everyone heard in their hearts a voice singing, "It is good when all people live together in friendship."
This is the story of The Ugly Duckling. When you hear the bell, it's time to turn the page. Let's begin.
Mrs. Duck was sitting on her eggs. "Such lovely eggs," she quacked. "I can hardly wait for them to hatch." Suddenly, she heard a cracking sound. The eggs were hatching. 5 fuzzy yellow ducklings tumbled out of their shells. Hop, 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 peep, peep, peep. Mrs. Duck beamed with happiness. "But what's this?" she quacked. "There's one egg left, a great big one, and it's starting to hatch." The great big egg cracked open. Out tumbled the biggest duckling Mrs. Duck had ever seen. Hop, 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 peep, peep, peep. He was all gray with huge feet and a long, long neck. That very day, Mrs. Duck marched her new family to the pond. "Look smart, ducklings," she quacked. "Feathers straight, beaks up, and feet turned out. Stay in line and follow me." Mrs. Goose, Mrs. Hen, and Mrs. Turkey were already at the pond with their babies. "What a grand family of little ducklings," they called to Mrs. Duck. Then they saw the last duckling. "What a long neck," honked Mrs. Goose. "What big feet," cackled Mrs. Hen. "What happened to his feathers?" gobbled Mrs. Turkey. "Oh dear, what an ugly duckling," agreed all the farmyard fowl. Just then, the ugly duckling tripped over his own big feet and fell on his beak. Everyone laughed. Poor ugly duckling. He hid his head under his wing. That was just the start of Ugly Duckling's troubles. Nobody in the barnyard liked him. The chicks wouldn't share their corn with him. The baby turkeys tripped him when he ran after a bug. The goslings made him it whenever they played tag. Everyone pointed at his big feet and long neck. Ugly Duckling spent most of his time paddling in the pond by himself. He sighed when he looked at his reflection in the water. "What's wrong with me?" he asked himself. "Why doesn't anybody want to be my friend?" One day, a flock of birds with elegant wings, snowy white feathers, and long necks flew over the pond. Ugly Duckling had never seen anything so beautiful. Why couldn't he be like them? The days were getting shorter, the nights were getting colder, but Ugly Duckling was not welcome in the warm barn. He paddled across the pond, he hid in the long grass with his head under his wing. He stayed there through the long, icy winter. At last, warm spring days brightened the pond. All the barnyard fowl came back to swim and play and visit. Ugly Duckling had grown much larger. He stretched his long neck and glided into the water. Suddenly, he looked up. There were the elegant white birds he had seen last summer. They were swimming right toward him. "Oh, no," sighed Ugly Duckling. "These beautiful birds have come to laugh at me." But the birds didn't laugh at Ugly Duckling. They swam all around him, making friendly sounds and stroking him with their beaks. He looked at their snowy white feathers. He looked at their long, graceful necks. Then he looked at his own reflection in the pond. He had snowy white feathers. He had a long, graceful neck. He was no longer an ugly, awkward duckling. He was a beautiful swan. The ducks and chickens and turkeys stared at the new swan. "He's the grandest swan I've ever seen," clucked a chicken. "Look at his lovely white feathers," gobbled a turkey. "What an elegant neck," quacked one of the ducks. "I wonder where that swan came from." The swan swam and played with his new friends. He was beautiful now, but he would never forget how it felt to be an ugly duckling. And he would always remember that plain feathers can hide a noble heart. The end.